Good morning. My name is Dr. Larry Force, and I'm a professor of psychology at the Mount St. Mary College and co-director of our Center on Aging and Disability Policy. Every Wednesday at 10 o'clock, we come together. And if I could ask people just for the background stuff, if you could just mute yourself if you're not speaking. Every Wednesday, we come together at 10 o'clock to have this exchange between Peggy Pisano as a school psychologist and advocate, and Lisa Nathan as a parent, advocate, and a meditator. What started off as an informal dialogue, because as you know, things are different now. So typically, we would be seeing you in person. Typically, we would be setting up train-the-trainer models and bringing in, 50 to 75 to 100 people to do train-the-trainer programs. But now that we're living in this new world with the emphasis being on social isolation, but also the emphasis being on connection, we started to think about how to go about delivering the content and the information that we had. And what morphed to the surface was this proactive caring school exchange. The Proactive Caring program, which is being administered by our Center on Aging and Disability Policy at Mount St. Mary College, is funded by the New York State Developmental Disability Planning Council. It's a 3-year grant using mindfulness-based stress reduction techniques for families that have individuals with disabilities, for families that have individuals with intellectual disabilities. And we've received so many good, so much good feedback about how best to go about, using these techniques. So again, what started off as an informal discussion has now turned into a regular, video cast on Wednesdays. And then what we do is then we're recording this, and then what we do is we distribute it through our mailing list. And I've had 2 agencies contact me and tell me that how much they like this, not only for their families, but they're using it for in-service training. So as we send it out, through our mailing list, what we're asking is if you could also send it out through your mailing list. So with that, what I'd like to be able to do is I'd like to be able to introduce Peggy Pisano as the school psychologist and Lisa Nathan as the parent advocate. And the focus this week is on how to be grateful in these challenging times and increasing compassion. The way the format goes is that Peggy and Lisa will have this exchange, and then we'll open it up for, questions, answers, observations, comments, reflections. And the only thing we ask is that if you're not speaking, if you could have the mute button on. All right, so at this point, Peg, Lisa?
So today's discussion is about gratefulness and compassion. And so Lisa and I are going to kind of go back and forth. I just wanted to just have a caveat to what we're doing here is that this is not, the most in-depth argument for any of the outlines that we have. So what our goal is to present a little bit of information about the particular subject, give some strategies for perhaps behavioral interventions for your children or yourself, and then also do some mindfulness relaxation with respect to the subject matter. So that's just a little information about how we feel that we should organize the day. So gratefulness, the definition of gratefulness is the appreciation for what you have. And different people demonstrate gratefulness, obviously, in different ways. Gratefulness can be a temporary feeling. You feel grateful for one individual thing that perhaps happened, or perhaps you did, and or it could be a sort of overarching feeling about how you look at the world. The research shows that gratefulness can strengthen relationships because it can come from feeling grateful for what you have and the ability to help others so that they can have things that are important to them. And you can be grateful for all kinds of different things, for your colleagues, for your friends, for your house, for your environment, for your health in today's world. And that, gratefulness, again, is demonstrated and means different things to different people. Psychologists feel that gratefulness can boost happiness. sort of makes sense, and it can foster psychological and physical well-being. So Lisa's going to talk a little bit about what it means to be grateful and how we can assist in that in our everyday life.
All right. Thanks, Peggy. So Peggy mentioned gratefulness. Hi, everybody. I'm Lisa. Has many benefits. Research has proven that it creates a stronger immune system. Having a gratefulness practice, being aware of being grateful, it lowers your blood pressure. It helps with better sleep. It gives you more positive emotions. You have better self-care. You're more generous, more compassionate, and more forgiving and patient. But gratefulness doesn't necessarily come easily, and it doesn't necessarily be something that we're born with. It needs to be developed, nurtured, and cultivated. So, and we humans have something what's called a negativity bias, which makes us grasp onto negative thinking. We can easily get mired in the worst case scenario and like, boy, does that have relevance today? You may know somebody, or you yourself may be sick with COVID-19. Somebody in your family could have just lost a job overnight, literally. And especially for us who have kids with special needs, we've been asked to be our child's teacher. And for us, that could also mean being their OT, their physical therapist, and their speech therapist. You may not be able to get home food delivery for another 3 weeks, or, and we're wondering, when will life ever be normal again? That's a lot of real anxiety and worry. But let's go back to remembering the benefits of gratitude and say, okay, let's start right here, right now, for something I can be grateful for at this moment. It could be connecting to each other on this Zoom call. It could be your home that you're safe in right now. The beauty of spring around us, which is like, watching my forsythias blooming in the back. Our clean drinking water, your soft pillow, your next breath. There is always something to be grateful for. And once we identify something that we can be grateful for, the next important step is the way we practice the gratitude. And we're going to do a little bit of gratitude practice. And I just want to throw this out there so you can think of this. I'm going to get during the meditation, the gratitude meditation, I'm going to ask you to identify 3 things you're grateful for. It's going to be someone you love, something you're grateful for, and something that you're grateful for about yourself. Okay, so I just want to put that out there. Now we can intellectually think about these things that we're grateful for, but we want to take it one step further and to identify how gratefulness makes us feel. It's important that where the benefits and real transformation take place about all these benefits that we can get from gratefulness is identifying those feelings in our bodies. So, a few ways to develop gratefulness, keeping a gratitude journal. And I know you're going to talk about this, Peggy. Maybe just writing a few things down that happened during the day that you can be grateful for. Or if you could just think it at the end of the day. And they don't have to be big. And this way of the gratitude, thinking about things you're grateful for, is a way of developing more, is a way of eliminating negative thoughts and building those benefits into a gratitude practice. We cannot have 2 opposite emotions inside of us at the exact same time. So gratefulness is like a bridge to developing positive emotions to get us out of the ruminating thoughts in our head that we may be having we may be having, and it brings us back to the present moment of where we are right now, so we can focus on what we can be grateful for at this very moment. And being happy makes you want to share happiness, because gratefulness can lead to happiness. And I want to share a little story. About 16 years ago, my kids were little. My oldest was 5. Gabriel, my special needs guy, was around 3. And my daughter was 1. And I schlepped them all to Adams. And I love going to Adams, but bringing three little kids to Adams on a weekend was like, probably not the best idea in the world. And Gabriel was just on sensory overload, and he was like all over the place, and, I'm trying to contain them. And I'm getting ready to walk out to get out of there. And this woman walks past me with the biggest smile on her face, looks right at me and smiles at me. And, I connected with, I paused for a second, but I was like, so like involved with the kids. I just like went on my way. And later on I was processing it. And it was like, she was saying to me, I see you. I understand this is really challenging for you right now. And I'm just sending you out a compassionate smile. It took maybe 3 seconds. I never spoke a word to her. She never spoke a word to me. And I wish I could have gone back and said to her at some point, thank you. And 16 years later, I can still bring up how that made me feel. The fact that she shared that moment of compassion with me. And that's one thing, if I'm doing a gratefulness practice, I can bring up. And that makes me want to pay it forward. What she did for me in those seconds is I like to share that with other people. If I see another parent having a difficult time, I'll do the same thing for them. All right, so now I want to do a little gratefulness meditation. We know already, to connect to our breath and put our feet flat on the floor. And just take a moment to settle, to feel ourselves connected to the chair that we're sitting on, and to accept wherever we are right now. If your breathing is shallow, if you're struggling, if you're not relaxed right now, it's important to just accept where you are and then move on. Okay. We can connect to our breath for a moment. Now I want you to picture someone in your mind that you love. And picture them and feel their presence. It could be a person, it can be a pet, and it could be anybody who makes you feel that way. Don't judge yourself. Just let it come to you. And how do they make you feel? Connect to your body. And when you're in their presence or when you talk to them, even if it's somebody who's not alive anymore, what feelings do they bring inside of you? Okay, now I want to move on to something that you feel grateful for. It could be your home. It could be your morning cup of coffee. It could be the view out your window. It could be your pillow, your blanket, whatever. And how does that make you feel inside? What does that bring you inside? And now the most difficult one, something you can be grateful for about yourself. Very often we tend to not recognize our own attributes. It could be that you're a kind person. You are willing to offer help to somebody else. You're a hard worker. You care about your family. You're a good problem solver. Just one positive attribute about yourself. and really try to bring that into your body and feel that. How does that make you feel? Okay. Notice the feelings in your body, how these feelings may open up your heart, and that you feel connected. And just let the sense of appreciation just fill your whole being. And you can store these feelings for the future. And these feelings that you're bringing inside your body are what's going to help transform and really help bring those benefits of feeling gratitude and feeling grateful. Now take a nice deep breath. And just let it go. Okay. Well done. All right, Peggy, that's,
Okay.
this can be done. Yeah.
As you were speaking, Lisa, and I was going through those kind of scenarios that you demonstrated, one of the things that struck me really was the woman that smiled at you. Because I don't think we really understand how we impact other people. And it could be as simple as a smile or a nod of the head or what have you, or something major. And so I think that we have to stop and take a look at what we can be grateful for and how we can, demonstrate that to others, because just that simple smile really had an impact on you. Obviously, 16 years later, you can still remember that. And I think that we all have those experiences in our lives. If we think back of a small thing that happened to us, either good or bad for that matter, but those little things obviously make big impacts.
They do. And it's important. It's okay to be thankful for little things. You don't have to think about big things all the time. Little things are very, very powerful.
Right. Like I think in today's world, I try whenever I go to a store, because I didn't do this before, to thank the workers who are working in the grocery store, or to thank the guy at the gas station who's still there and I can still get gas and I can shelter in place. Because other people are out there. It's not just about the nurses and the doctors, although certainly they're doing a heroic job, but the little people and the little demonstrations, if you will, of your own gratitude to them is, I think, important.
Absolutely. Yeah. You think about the truck drivers out there still working, and the people still picking up our garbage, and everything. Everybody has a role.
Right.
And now more than ever, this situation is magnifying, the connections between each other.
Yes.
And now more than ever, we understand these connections, even just putting on your own mask so you keep somebody else safe, or that now. I mean, this is just such a remarkable time right now. Yeah. So
we thought also we would look at compassion, and compassion and gratefulness kind of go hand in hand a little bit. They sort of meld together somewhat. But I did some looking into and some research on compassion specifically, and literally the word means to suffer together. That's the definition of compassion. And that emotional researchers define compassion as the feeling that arrives when you confront with another person's suffering and try to have a feeling to connect with that person, and also try to help in dissipating that suffering in some way. That's really the true definition of what it is to be compassionate for another human being. Researchers have found that compassion is something that's sort of instinctual, and that it could be an automatic response and doesn't always have to be learned, although it can be learned. And the reason they think that is because it's found in very young children, even 2 years old, 1 year old, and also sometimes in animals. So they think that there is a part of us as humans that compassion is an intrinsic, kind of part of us. Compassion has to do with, and so does gratefulness, connecting with someone else in a kind of positive way. It also provides a lot of time better physical and mental health for a person who is feeling compassionate to others, because when you give to someone else, it makes you feel better. And that's kind of what researchers have seen. They've seen that children as young as 2 years old get more out of giving something to someone than they do at receiving. And you've probably seen that in your own life with your own children, perhaps, when they get to give you a dandelion out in the yard, or they get to give you something and they don't expect anything in return, but they're so excited about being able to give their family member something. And so that happens very early on in the developmental stages. And when we feel compassionate, we feel connected. And when we feel connected, we feel less stress and anxiety. So it kind of ties into all of the things that we've been speaking to over the course of these few weeks. So can compassion be learned? I had this conversation actually with Larry the other day. And yes, in fact, it can be learned. And I think from a behavioral point of view, we sort of look at changing behavior and then changing behavior, changing actions that hopefully lead to changing emotions and feeling states. So, what might start out as just kind of learning techniques, hopefully will evolve with people and children specifically into a higher level feeling. And in this case, more compassion. So how do children learn to be more compassionate? I think keep in mind, though, that children demonstrate compassion in different ways, and probably very different ways from adults. And then depending on your child and the developmental level and some of the disability levels, they may be demonstrating compassion in totally different ways. So I think as a parent or a guardian, you have to be able to recognize that. And one of the best ways to recognize and to teach compassion is to model it yourself. So when you are seeing something as a parent or a guardian that looks like a compassionate action, then demonstrating that and bringing that to the attention of your child is paramount. So some of the other ways that kids can learn compassion. They can be, you can instill in them the ability to be nice to someone without getting something in return. So can you get your sibling their homework paper? Can you help them set the table? Whatever activities you want to demonstrate in your family, but it's not because you're going to get a reward, it's just because you're doing something for another human being. And I think that when kids learn those things, they eventually learn that I can do something for someone else that doesn't require getting something for myself. Have a child say something nice. And this was, kind of what you were talking. Teach your children to be polite, to say something nice, to say hello, to say goodbye, to smile at others. Again, depending on the developmental age and developmental sort of functioning, if you will, those things are easier to teach. You say hello to Mrs. So-and-so. You say thank you when you're in the grocery store. You do all of those things that are, just kind of polite ways to behave. Help your child help someone else if they can, whether it's they help the elderly neighbor with their groceries, or they walk their dog, or they mow somebody's lawn, or they do some errands, or they do something in their own household where they're helping another person. Again, without thoughts of getting sort of their own reward. Have your child play cooperative games that don't have a winner or a loser. Because I think when we have winners and losers, then we're, kind of teaching competition, and we really don't want to do that. So there are lots of cooperative games out there in the world, or you can invent one for yourself that doesn't require winning and losing, but requires working together to solve a problem. One of the things that they talked about in the research was this program that a teacher had developed. It was called the toothpaste program, I think. And so what she had the students do was they worked in groups and they emptied a tube of toothpaste out onto a paper plate. And then their job as a group was to put the toothpaste back in the tube with, I'm not sure what, maybe, toothpicks, I'm not sure what, but how did they work as a group to get that toothpaste back into the tube? And ultimately, after much ado, she told her class that it was impossible to get that toothpaste back in the tube, but the goal was for them to work cooperatively together and to try to figure out a strategy that might or might not work. And that was a way of obviously team building and building supports for each other, but ultimately working in a together kind of fashion. Have your older child help your younger child, or your child maybe, the child with disabilities can help in some way with their younger siblings, in any way, shape, or form. Again, I think the whole goal is to have somebody help another human being, or for that matter, if you have pets, without getting something in return. You could do, and this works sort of for gratitude and compassion, but an act of kindness jar. If I did something that was kind today, I could put that information in the jar, and then at the end of the week or what have you, parents can review that. Also, the reverse could happen. There are little slips of paper that you put in a jar, and little acts that you want your child to participate in throughout the week, and so they get to pick that little slip of paper and enact whatever was on their paper. So those two kind of strategies are things that you could work with children. Have your child write letters to someone, family members, in the olden days, we used to have pen pals. But those things are becoming more and more popular. I saw something, I think it was on the news, about people who are adopting elderly people in the nursing homes because they don't have visitation anymore. So either through computer or through snail mail or what have you, they are connecting with some of the people in nursing homes. But your child could do that. And again, it can be a little letter that says, hello, my name is, or it could be a more in-depth letter depending on the age and the stages of your child's development. Read a book with your child, or have them read to you. But there are many books out there that deal with kind of compassionate, emotional kinds of scenarios. And so that builds compassion when you can see it elsewhere. And, allow your child, and I think this was an important thing, to make mistakes and to not behave in a sort of compassionate way, but use that as a teaching tool for some time later on when you can review with them, you really could have said hello to so-and-so, or you really could have done, whatever the circumstances are. And then, kind of talk to your child about how their behavior affects other people. I think that's an important one. How do the things that they say and do and the ways that they act, how does that impact the family? How does it impact the pets? How does that impact anybody else if they have in contact with them? And then kind of have somebody take care of something, whether it's they feed the goldfish or they do the dishes or something. Take care of some other thing or some living thing in your house if you have another living thing. Some of those are just kind of specific little activities that parents can do with their children. They can be in depth or not so much in depth, but on a daily basis. And those things kind of build thoughts of other people and the ability to help and be concerned about others. And I think finally, the kind of most important thing is, as parents and guardians and teachers and anybody else out there, we have to model those kinds of behaviors for our children. And when we do that, if the child is not understanding, explain it. I did this because, I wanted to make so-and-so feel better, what have you. So, little ways to kind of help your children grow in their gratitude and their compassion for others.
Lisa and Peggy, you did a great job in bringing together both the meditative practice side and the behavioral practical side. I mean, I think as parents, we can all attest to the fact that parenting is never over. you know, and the fact, and you know, we did have this conversation earlier in the week. You know, you think compassion can be taught? You know, is it inherent? And some people are extroverted, some people are introverted, some people are more compassionate. And you know, when you look at the points that Peg made, you know, about the modeling, you know, it is a learning, you know, a learning technique. And I think that, you know, we were under no illusion, and I wanted to put this disclaimer in here. When this started off informally, and then it became a weekly thing, someone commented and said, "Oh, too bad more parents weren't able to join." We're on a Wednesday at 10 o'clock. We never intended to make this a forum for like a town hall. The thinking is immediately when we started to move into this new transition of social isolation and children being home from school, we had a commitment to be able to get our information, our strategies, our helpful techniques out to the parents. So the real power of this proactive caring school exchange is not only the exchange that's present at Wednesday at 10 o'clock, and I would hope that people would have comment, you know, in a moment, but the real power is the fact that it's recorded and then it's sent out. And then parents can, you know, take a look at it at any time they want, or maybe just segments of it. You know, again, no illusion that somebody's going to be able to show up when school is going on through technology at 10 o'clock on a Wednesday and just sit back and have time for a discussion. Maybe some people will be looking at this at 1 a.m. in the morning, okay, when everybody's asleep, or they're just listening to it. But I think the power of what you both brought here today, at least I really liked what you said about, you know, we talk about things that we do, you know, we take care of our nutrition, you know, exercise, you know, we build them into our daily life. We're cognizant of them, we're sensitive to them. But you said something about having a gratefulness practice, you know, and that's something that just passes you by until you bring it up, you know, about having a gratefulness practice, about just stopping for a moment in that meditative state, in that quiet moment, you know, closing your eyes and start to talk about love, things. And as you said, you know, the most difficult one is self. One of the things that we know is that there's nobody that talks to us more than we talk to ourselves. And typically, we're not our best cheerleader. We say things to ourselves that we would never allow anybody to say to us. And the idea is, you know, in working with clients, my private practice, what do I tell clients at the very beginning? I'm not your hero. I can't fix you because you're not broken, because we all have stuff. And there's no magic here. From a therapeutic perspective, an intervention perspective, we don't have the power to change the things that are going on in the person's life. But I think where we can be present is to help that person start thinking differently about themselves, therefore start talking to themselves differently. And therefore they will start looking at the world and things around them differently. You know, and Peg, again, I got to go back to those points that you made. I mean, it's like a step-by-step, you know, guideline about, you know, how to go about in the rhythm of a day to be able to do these things. And here's Lisa, you know, here today, 16 years later, still seeing that smile, you know, and the impact that it had. So, you know, our goal was to be able to have this exchange about how to be grateful in these challenging times and increasing compassion. And I think that both of you, you know, have done a wonderful job with it. What the viewers do not see is, you know, they see the two of you coming together on Wednesday having this exchange. What they don't see is the exchange that goes on between the two of you prior to this. The work that the two of you are putting into this, the thinking, the creative thinking that you're putting into this, the exchanges you're having with each other about what's the kind of general message you want to get out there. So both of you need to be, you know, acknowledged for that, you know, because you've done a yeoman's job in really making this all come together. What I would like to, so thank you. So what I would like to do is open it up for exchange, you know, and dialogue. And I'd ask that people would have some reflection or observation. So if you could just unmute yourself and let's talk.
I just want to add one thing, Larry, and to what Lisa said too about our perception of self and our negative thoughts. Oftentimes when you work with people, students, kids, whomever, you do think negative thoughts about yourself and the way you interact. Oh, I did a horrible job in that presentation. Oh, I'm going to be anxious about that. I'm not going to do so well at whatever the situation is. And I think that's part of human nature to do that. One of the things that I would do when I worked with students was often talk to them about, let's get a mantra, a positive mantra about what you're going to say to yourself beforehand, because I think we're real good at saying the negative, but we're not always so great at, giving the positives about ourselves. And so sometimes that helps with those negative thoughts and a way to feel more grateful about the things that we can do as individuals. So I think that and it could be a very simple thing. I'm going to be good at this. I'm going to do great at this, whether it's a presentation or a job interview or whatever. And use that as a technique to kind of promote yourself, because I think people have a tendency not to promote yourself in a sort of positive way. So I just kind of wanted to stick that in there.
Thanks. So comments, reflections? Debbie, I'm coming to you first. I mean, I can see you right there, so you have to unmute yourself.
Hi. Hi, everyone. I'm Debbie. I work for independent living, like other familiar faces. So my comment today is that I have a good friend that recently, actually, it's been a few months probably, she said to me, I was saying something mean about myself, and she said, "Don't speak to my friend that way." And that really stuck with me. It was really nice, because I feel like if it had been the other way around, I would have said something to her like, "Oh, don't speak about yourself that way." And it was really nice that she reminded me that I should probably not speak to myself in a way that I wouldn't speak to anybody else. So that was really nice.
That's a great example. That really is a great example. Debbie and I go back a long way. We went to college together. That's what we did.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Sharon? Elaine? I can't see everybody, but I can see some people. Let me see if I can.
I just wanted to just make a comment about the gratitude journal idea. I think that that's something I'm going to try and implement. We have a bunch of folks that are developmentally disabled adults. They're home. They usually come to our program every day, and they're struggling. They miss their friends. They miss our staff. So I think that the idea of a gratitude journal is something that's really, really can really be beneficial and really, kind of keep people grounded. So I really was excited about that and how maybe I can implement that going forward. But and we try and do, as Wendy and Debbie know, we try as an agency to do some meditation every day, which is so helpful. And as Lisa has shown us in a very great way that how important it is to just be mindful of your breath, and we find I find a lot of comfort in that. So I just wanted to share those two thoughts.
Thanks so much. And Lisa, clearly, I mean, you need to know that this idea of embedding a practice, demonstrating, engaging us in the practice is so powerful. It's so powerful. Anyone else? Sharon, Elaine, anybody out there?
I'm going to try and jump in, but I may have to mute because my dogs are running around. I think for me, the big takeaway is be kind to yourself. Much easier to be kinder to other people. We're all individuals who are very much involved in the giving, and we forget that we need to receive too, from ourselves.
That's very true. I mean, I think that, based upon, what we do as parents, what we do as, being involved in our life's work, typically we're very present for others. And I had now that we're working from home, I put together a kind of like a structure to my day and then therefore my week. So certain days of the week I teach, certain days of the week, parts of the day I see clients, then I work on projects. And it hit me, and I think this is, Lisa, this is because you're in my head, okay? It hit me that when I looked at that planner, the one thing that wasn't in there was me. You know, it was all about, you know, what I was going to do for the benefit of others or be present or my profession. But yeah, I had put exercise, but I didn't really put like me time. Now, me time could be anything, you know, it could be anything. It's dictated by the nature of the person. But I think that without having these discussions and being involved in this whole, you know, program of being able to really focus on this concept of mindfulness, I think would be, I'm not sure if I would have even recognized that I wasn't in my own planner.
Yeah, and I want to add something, because there's another type of meditation called loving kindness meditation, where you learn to be kind to yourself, like loving to yourself. And when I was starting my meditation, and you know, this may have come along, I couldn't do that for a really long time. Just to be present with myself and to say, you know, I love myself and to be kind. I just like let it go. And it wasn't until like over a year later that I could really come to that. So this is really, you know, such a powerful form of taking care of yourself and learning to be grateful for yourself, and really loving to learn yourself to rid yourself of the 50, 60,000, you know, what we call monkey mind ruminations, that some of them can be very negative. And Debbie, I love what your friend said. I'm going to use that, because that, like when she said it, I imagine it just like stopped you in your tracks. So I'm going to use that one.
Thanks. Anyone else before we bring this to a close?
I think I want to share. Can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely. Good to see you.
I'm Wendy from Independent Living. Jen and Debbie know me well. As a parent, Lisa, I must say that I agree with the story that you first shared, where I've been that parent that this child is screaming in the store, and I've been that's why I love to acknowledge when I see that happening, because it tells people it's okay for, you know, because people that sometimes I've heard people that don't have children share, oh my God, they can't even control their kids or something. And it's not about that. You just don't want to react so aggressively to your child, to everything. I have 3 children myself, so I went through it in different occasions. And I definitely like to acknowledge people now as I go through it myself, and I'm like, oh my God, I have to get out the store because this child is screaming and hollering. So I try to pace myself, and I try to acknowledge when people are doing that. And I definitely like that Debbie shared that, because my sister and I do that all the time. I'm very into taking care of my family and my children, and then I always forget about myself and my needs. And my sister is always good at reminding me, okay, so when did you give yourself some time? So like today, I pushed myself to get up extra early, and at 7 in the morning, I went for a walk, and I gave myself those 30 minutes to walk in the cold air, but it was my time. So I've been trying to work on that, especially now with this pandemic, and after surviving it myself personally, and now being okay. And I want to give, so I will be donating blood to possibly save lives.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That really is wonderful. Really, really, very, 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 very wonderful. All right, so at this point, I think we're going to wrap this up. Again, Peggy and Lisa, applause, applause, applause. You did a great job, okay, as always. And there are the virtual applauses going on. That's wonderful. All right, and we'll see everyone next week, and be safe and be well. All right, thank you.